Good morning, class. Guess what? It is time to celebrate. We have made it to the end of our unit. All we have to do is fill out our study guide, study, and then take the test. Then you're done all break until it's time to go back. All right, so let's take a look at the beginning here. What you need to do, though, make sure that you know the vocabulary. Did you hear me? I said, know the vocabulary. So study those words. All right, so let's take a look at number 1. Explain the law of conservation of energy. Well, the law of the conservation of energy states, energy cannot be created or destroyed, only changed. Oh, and at any time, if you need to pause this in order to write it all down, that would be fine. Okay, moving on to number 2. Identify 5 ways that you can conserve energy. Well, there's a lot of different ways. I'm going to help you by giving you 5 that I can think of, but if you can think of other ways, that would count too. So let's take a look at some. The first one I come up with is walk. Instead of driving your car, use your legs and go for a walk. Now, of course, safety is always first and foremost, though, above any kind of conserving energy. So you always make sure you have permission to do that first from your mom and dad. The second one is ride a bike or public transportation. Turning off the lights when they're not being used, when you leave a room. Conserving water. And recycling, or even buying things that use less packaging. So now we're going to explain how conserving energy helps you to obey God's command to care for the earth. Now, we know that He tells us to be good stewards of His earth. And what does that mean exactly? Well, that means we need to take care of things and use things wisely and not waste. What we can do is use fewer non-renewable resources so less pollution is created. Okay, let's move on to page 2. Let me move my little marker, my little thing here down. All right, so now we're going to fill in the following chart identifying 3 renewable and 3 non-renewable resources. So, can you think of any renewable ones? Which ones are the ones that we learned about in our chapter? Well, we learned about wind and geothermal resources. We also learned about solar and water. So I'm giving you more. Okay, you're going to need to know 3 or so, but make sure that you're familiar with them all because you will be asked about them all on the test. But if you were to list a few, make sure that you know at least 3 right offhand that you can just, list them. Number 3, hydroelectric. Hydro means water. Electric. All right. Now let's move over to non-renewable. Non-renewable would be coal. Okay. Takes a long time to make coal. Petroleum. And when I said make coal, I meant for it to form. Okay, petroleum. And nuclear. not nuclear. Okay, look how it's spelled. It is N-U-C, so nuclear. Okay, and then number 3, the one that we all know, natural gas. Okay, so those are your renewable and non-renewable. So if you look up here again, what does it say? You're going to have to identify 3 renewable. Now the ones where there's commas, that means there's 2 listed on that line. Okay? Like solar is different than water. Solar is from the sun. Okay? So that gives you a variety. All right, let's take a look at number 5. What is energy? What is energy? Well, let's make it really easy. It is the ability to cause change. Okay? Number 6. Let's differentiate between heat and temperature. So we're going to have to compare. So let's get it ready. There's heat and temperature. I'm just going to put a little shortcut here, and I'm just going to say temp. So heat is thermal energy. Temperature is the measure of thermal energy. I can kind of draw a parallel to that with a pencil and a ruler. So a pencil is a pencil, but the ruler, inches is the measure of how long your pencil is. So the same thing with heat. Heat is the thermal energy, but temperature measures the thermal energy, measures how much heat there is. All right, let's take a look at number 7. Which has chemical energy? Remember, think about this. Chemical energy. Which one of those 4? If you said oil, you are correct. All right, so I think that's that page. So let me move down my little thing over here so that I can change the page. So, number 8, what is energy conversion? You have to think about what the word conversion means. Conversion, or energy conversion, means energy changing from one form to another, because when something is converted, it's changing. Okay, so if you can remember that, that would be great. That will help you. All right, number 9. What is the type of energy release when the nucleus of atoms are joined or split? Think about this. This is way down at the atom size. What kind of energy is that? It's nuclear. Okay. Number 10. What is electrical energy? It's moving electrons. And number 11. Well, here, let me tell you something here about the electrical energy, the electrons. All right, so basically what you have is an atom, okay, is super tiny, okay. Inside that atom, you have protons and neutrons in there. And then around that atom, you have electrons. And that just depends on the particular material it is, or what kind of a element it is, that will determine how many electrons there are that circle around this. They just kind of orbit around this atom. Okay, but anyway, that is what electrical energy is. It's moving electrons. All right, so now moving on to number 11. What type of energy is made from when one form of energy turns into another? So what they mean by that is, say there's an energy conversion that happens. Sometimes it gives off another kind of energy. That's my hint. What do you think it is? So basically, heat energy is produced when energy is being converted from one form to another. Let's look at the last page. This is a chart. We're going to fill in the advantages and disadvantages of these energy sources. So on the test, you are going to have to list one advantage and one disadvantage for each one of those energy sources. I'm going to give you more than one, so you can choose which one you want to use, but you will be asked at some point on the test about that. Okay, so we're going to look at fossil fuels first. And I'm going to zoom in nice and big here. Fossil fuels. So some of the advantages is that fossil fuels burn efficiently. They're easy to use and transport, and compared to the other ones, they're cheap. Now, I know gas prices aren't exactly cheap, but they're down from what they were. But when you compare it to the rest of them, it's one of the cheaper ones. Okay, let's take a look at the disadvantages. There are 3 of them. First of all, when you burn the fossil fuels, it gives off an exhaust which pollutes the air. They can run out. They can drain a certain place. Say they find oil, they can drain it dry, and then they'll have to go looking somewhere else for oil. Mining them harms ecosystems. If there's an oil spill in the ocean, we've all seen what happens then. A lot of the organisms die because they get coated with the oil. And so there are some disadvantages to that. All right, so make sure you know one each of each one of these. Okay, moving on to nuclear energy. Remember, because I'm going to zoom in, the box on the left is the advantages and the disadvantages are on the right. Okay, so nuclear energy. Okay, well, nuclear energy doesn't pollute the air, and it provides a lot of energy, and those are really great advantages. Now we're going to look at the disadvantages. Well, nuclear energy produces dangerous wastes. I know they do use a lot of water with it, and the radiation gets into that water, and they can't just throw it back into the ocean. They have to do something with it, like bury it. It causes a lot of problems with the wastes. And also it's very, very expensive. Okay, now we're going to move on to solar power. The advantages of solar power are things like it doesn't pollute the air, and it's always there. It's an abundant energy source. Some disadvantages would be that, well, one particular one that is important is it's not practical in areas without abundant sunshine. So if you can have all the solar panels you want out, but if the sun doesn't shine there, you're not going to be absorbing very much energy. So, it's good in some areas, and then in some, it's not. And you're going to find out as we fill in this chart, too, that not one source is perfect. That's why we have so many different kinds. An advantage of wind power is that it's very cheap in areas that have strong winds. Some disadvantages to wind power is that it's not a consistent source of energy, and it can't be used in many regions. Some places don't have a lot of wind, and then some places have a lot of wind. So again, it's just like the sun. There has to be an abundant amount of that particular fuel source, the energy source, to be able to use those kind of energy sources. Water power. The advantages are that it's very cheap and it doesn't pollute the air. And a disadvantage of water power is that it can harm water ecosystems. Geothermal energy. Its advantages are that it is an unlimited energy source and it also doesn't pollute the air. But it can only be used in a few places. And our last one is biomass. Its advantages are that it burns very efficiently and it doesn't pollute the air. And it can require a lot of water. Okay, do you remember how many advantages and disadvantages that you have to know of each one of these? If you said 1, you are right. All right. So just make sure that you do that. Also, please study for this test and be ready by Friday. Okay, that's one of the reasons I gave this to you early in the week, so that you have time to study it. Okay, well, this is it. You have a great rest of the day and study, study, study.